The transport shuttle touched down on the lonely metal platform of Outpost Helion 6, its engines echoing across the empty halls. Ethan Cole stepped out with his repair kit in hand, looking around at the strange alien station that hung at the edge of a dying star. The place felt abandoned, cold, and far too silent for a facility that should have been full of life. He had repaired many stations in dangerous places, but this one felt different, as if the metal walls themselves were holding their breath. As he walked through the corridor, flickering lights guided him toward the command deck. Each flicker made shadows jump on the walls, bending and stretching as if they were alive. Ethan told himself it was just his imagination, but the unease stayed with him. A pair of tall alien guards escorted him deeper inside. Their glowing armor cast blue light across the floor, but even they avoided looking toward a distant hallway. Ethan noticed how their eyes darted nervously whenever the lights dimmed. "Why is everyone acting like the dark is alive?" Ethan asked, trying to sound casual. Neither guard replied, they simply walked faster, avoiding that hallway completely. When they reached the central chamber, Ethan finally met the acting science officer, a slender alien woman with silver eyes and shining skin markings. She stood half-hidden behind a workstation, her fingers trembling slightly. "I am Lyra," she said in a soft voice. "You must be the human engineer." Ethan nodded. "I'm here to fix the power core, but your team didn't send many details." Lyra's eyes flickered toward the dark hallway. "The details are difficult," she whispered. Before Ethan could ask more, the lights overhead flickered again, plunging the room into half-darkness. Lyra gasped and moved closer to him instinctively, gripping the edge of his jacket. Ethan felt her hand shaking as if she was freezing even though the room was warm. "Are you all right?" he asked, confused. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Stay with me, human, please. I'll obey any command you give, just don't leave me in the dark." Ethan froze, surprised by her sudden fear and her desperate tone. He looked around, expecting some creature or alarm, but the shadows seemed normal. "Is something in the dark?" he asked gently. Lyra swallowed hard, her glowing markings pulsing like a heartbeat. "Not something, someone," she whispered, "and it calls for me." Ethan felt a cold chill run down his back. He tried to focus, reminding himself he was only here for a technical job, but Lyra's fear was real, and the emptiness of the station made her words feel heavier. She stepped back and pointed toward the hallway the guards avoided. "That section lost power first," she said. "Since then, the shadows speak, they whisper my name, they want me to return." "Return to what?" Ethan asked. Lyra shook her head. "A place I escaped as a child, a place where light never reaches." Ethan didn't understand everything, but he knew two things clearly. One, Lyra was terrified, and two, the power failures were getting worse. The lights dimmed again, this time slower, like a long exhale. The shadows stretched across the floor toward them, merging into one dark mass at the edge of the room. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm tightly. "Please don't go anywhere without telling me," she said. "If I lose sight of you, it might take me." Ethan tried to breathe normally. "It?" he asked. "What is it?" Lyra closed her eyes, voice shaking. "We call it the Veil," she whispered, "a living shadow parasite. It once controlled my people, feeding on our bodies and minds." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "And you think it's still here?" Lyra slowly nodded. "It survived below the station, and now it wants me back." Before Ethan could say another word, a deep hum vibrated through the floor, like something massive was crawling inside the walls. The lights flickered violently, then steadied. Ethan's instinct screamed that something was watching them, and when he turned toward the dark corridor, he felt, just for a moment, something staring back. The station intercom crackled, power levels falling in all sectors. A robotic voice announced, "Manual intervention required." Ethan adjusted his toolkit, trying to stay calm. "Then let's fix this power core before things get worse," he said. Lyra didn't move, her silver eyes were locked on the darkness, and Ethan saw raw terror in them. "Lyra," he whispered, touching her shoulder, "I need you to guide me." She nodded slowly, taking a trembling breath. "I will go with you," she said, "but when the lights go out, promise me you won't leave me." "I won't," Ethan said without hesitation. They stepped together into the hallway leading to Section 9. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, and the shadows thicker. Lyra's glowing markings were the only gentle light between the two of them. Halfway down the corridor, the hum returned, louder this time, like a heartbeat coming from inside the walls. Lyra froze, her whole body tightening. "Do you hear that?" Ethan whispered. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "It hears us too," she said, "it knows I'm here." The lights flickered once. Twice. Then everything went black. Lyra gasped and clung to Ethan as a voice echoed softly through the darkness, a whisper colder than deep space. "Lyra, come home." The entire station went silent as the shadows shifted like they were breathing, and Ethan realized this was not a simple power failure. Something ancient was awake. And it wanted her. The darkness pressed against Ethan like a heavy blanket, thick and silent. Lyra's glowing markings were the only thing stopping the shadows from swallowing them completely. Her hands trembled as she clung to his arm, and Ethan felt her heartbeat racing against him. The whisper came again, soft but sharp, like claws dragging across glass. "Lyra." Lyra shivered so violently that Ethan stepped in front of her without thinking. "Stay behind me," he said, even though he knew he could not fight a shadow. Lyra pressed her forehead against his back. "It remembers me," she whispered, "it remembers everything." Ethan tried to turn on his wrist light, but it only flickered weakly, as if the darkness itself was draining the battery. He lifted it higher, forcing the light outward, and for a brief second the shadows hissed and pulled back like smoke touched by fire. Lyra gasped for air, her voice cracking. "The veil, it does not like your light." "Then we stay close to it," Ethan said through clenched teeth. But Lyra shook her head. "Human light helps, but only my light can hurt it." Ethan didn't understand, not fully. "What do you mean your light?" he asked. Lyra slowly lifted her hand, and her silver markings brightened, glowing like soft moonlight. The darkness rippled and bent away from the glow, almost shrinking. Ethan stepped back, staring in awe. "You can do that?" he asked. Lyra lowered her hand quickly, her voice full of fear. "Should not," she whispered, "if I shine too bright, the veil will find me faster." Before Ethan could respond, the shadows on the wall began twisting into long thin shapes, almost like hands stretching toward her. Lyra cried out and pushed herself against Ethan. "It's angry because you touched me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It hates when I choose someone else." Ethan froze. "Choose?" he asked. "Choose what?" Lyra swallowed hard. "My kind. Before we broke free, we were bonded to the veil like slaves," she said, "connected through the dark." "So you escaped," Ethan whispered, "and now it wants you back." Lyra nodded slowly. "It wants me because I am the last to resist." The shadows on the wall shifted, forming a tall shape with glowing empty eyes, like a nightmare wearing the shape of a person. Ethan raised the flickering lamp, but the light barely pushed it back. "We need to get to the generator," Ethan said, pulling Lyra with him down the corridor. The shadow shape followed, not walking but sliding across the walls like living ink, whispering her name again and again. Lyra covered her ears, crying softly. "I can hear its emotions," she said. "It is angry, jealous, and hungry." "Hungry for what?" Ethan whispered. Lyra did not answer. She didn't need to. Ethan already understood. It wanted her soul. Her memories. Her light. When they reached a maintenance door, Ethan forced it open, dragging Lyra inside. He shut the door and activated the emergency lock. The shadows pounded once on the metal, then fell silent. Lyra sank to the floor, hugging her knees, her glowing markings dimming. Ethan knelt in front of her, touching her shoulder gently. "Lyra, look at me," he said softly. She lifted her eyes, filled with fear and something deeper, shame. "I am dangerous to be near," she whispered. "The veil hunts anyone I touch." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly. "You asked me to stay, remember?" Lyra's lips trembled. "You are strange, human," she whispered. "My people run from me, but you stand beside me even when the shadows reach for your mind." "What do you mean my mind?" Ethan asked slowly. Lyra placed her fingertips against his temple, and he felt a faint cold sensation. the veil tries to enter your thoughts, she whispered, it wants to scare you, break you, make you leave me. As if hearing her words, the lights flickered, and Ethan saw brief visions at the corner of his eye, Earth burning, Lyra screaming, the darkness swallowing him whole. Ethan jerked back, trying to steady his breathing. Lyra grabbed his hands, her voice urgent, don't listen to it, she begged, it shows illusions, they are not real. Ethan inhaled deeply, grounding himself, then it's scared, he said, scared because you're not alone this time. Lyra blinked, surprised by his confidence, do you really believe that? I do, Ethan said. The emergency lock clicked once, warning that the darkness was draining power again. Ethan stood, helping Lyra to her feet. We have to move, he said, if we restore the generator, we get full light back. Lyra nodded, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ethan, she whispered, the closer we get to the generator, the stronger the veil becomes. Ethan looked her in the eyes, then stay close to me, he said, we fight it together. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped closer, almost touching her forehead to his, if you stay with me. I might be strong enough, she whispered, but if you leave me, it will take me forever. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said. They unlocked the door and stepped into the corridor again. The shadows recoiled from Lyra's glow, swirling violently, whispering her name with growing anger. The part ends as Ethan and Lyra approach the final staircase to the generator room. The shadows gather at the top like a living storm. And for the first time, the veil speaks directly to Ethan. She is mine, it growled, human, turn back while you still can. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra's hand. He did not turn back. Not even a little. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra's hand as the shadow storm gathered at the top of the staircase. The veil was no longer hiding inside the walls, it was forming shapes, tall and thin, like silhouettes of people who never learned how to stand like humans. Lyra's breath shook, and she leaned closer to Ethan. It knows you're helping me, she whispered, it wants you gone. Ethan raised his dim light, but the veil only pulled back slightly, swirling as if mocking him. He felt something cold brush the side of his face, and a whisper seeped into his mind like poison. Human, you do not belong here. Ethan forced the voice out of his head. Too bad, he muttered, I'm already here. Lyra grabbed his arm desperately. It will show you more illusions, she warned, it will try to break you. Let it try, Ethan said, though his heartbeat was racing. As they climbed the stairs, the shadows shifted again, forming a long corridor of darkness. The air grew colder with every step. Ethan could see small cracks in the floor glowing faintly, as if something underneath was pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra's markings brightened slightly, and Ethan noticed something surprising. The veil reacted, not with hunger, but with rage. It hates your connection to me, Lyra whispered softly, it feels threatened. Good, Ethan said, maybe we can use that. Lyra stopped walking and stared at him, her silver eyes wide and emotional. You are not afraid of me, she whispered, not even of what hunts me. Ethan shook his head. Lyra, I'm here because you asked me to stay, he said, and because you shouldn't face this alone. Her eyes glowed brighter at his words, and the shadows hissed. Suddenly the veil struck, a tendril shot from the ceiling like black lightning, aiming straight for Ethan's chest. Lyra screamed and pushed him aside, her own glow exploded outward, forcing the tendril to retreat. She fell to her knees, gasping, it tried to kill you, she whispered, because if you die, I lose hope. Ethan helped her stand. I'm not dying, he said firmly, not today. The corridor finally opened into the massive generator room, but the sight froze both of them. The generator was covered in black tendrils, wrapped tightly around the glowing machinery like a nest. Pulses of shadow energy traveled through the cables, making the entire room feel alive. Lyra's body stiffened, her voice small, this is where it feeds. Ethan stepped forward, studying the machinery carefully. If I can get under it, I can reroute a power surge, he said, that might burn the veil enough to release the generator. Lyra grabbed his wrist, her hands cold and trembling. The moment you touch that core, it will attack you, she whispered, and I might not be strong enough to protect you again. Ethan placed his free hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "We do this together," he said. "You said your light hurts it." Lyra nodded, but fear filled her eyes. "My light only works when I am near someone I trust," she whispered. "When I am alone, it is weak." "Then stay near me," Ethan said. "Use me as your anchor." Lyra stared at him as if she'd never heard anything like that before. Her voice softened. "Why?" Ethan hesitated, then answered honestly, "Because you shouldn't have to fight the darkness alone." Her silver eyes softened, glowing brighter. "Human," she whispered, "your presence gives me strength." At Ethan's first step toward the generator, the veil reacted violently. The shadows rose from the floor like waves, forming almost human figures with hollow eyes. They whispered in unison. "Lyra belongs to us. Lyra belongs to us." Lyra gripped Ethan's hand tightly. "Do not listen to them," she begged. "They speak like my old masters." The shadows extended their arms, reaching for Lyra. She flinched, covering her ears, but Ethan pulled her close, placing her hand on his chest. "Listen to my heartbeat," he whispered, "not to them." Lyra's eyes widened as she felt the steady rhythm beneath her palm. Her breathing slowed, her light grew stronger, and the shadows recoiled, screeching silently. Ethan used that moment to jump onto the platform, dragging Lyra with him. The shadows surged forward in anger, but Lyra's glow protected their small space like a fragile shield. The veil's true voice echoed across the room, deeper, colder. "You break her, human, you twist her mind, she was ours." Ethan ignored it and opened a panel on the generator, wires sparking in his face. "Keep the light strong," he said. "I need a few seconds." Lyra nodded, stepping closer, her glow brightening until the room shimmered softly. The shadows writhed, pulling back angrily. But Ethan felt exhaustion in her hands. She was struggling. Fighting her own fear. Using every ounce of strength to stay bright. A shadow tendril lunged again, and this time Lyra responded instinctively. Her entire body flared with light, pushing the darkness back with a force Ethan had never seen. The tendril hissed and evaporated like smoke. Lyra fell forward, breathing hard, and Ethan caught her before she collapsed. "You're doing great," he murmured, holding her steady. Lyra looked up at him weakly. "I only have strength because you are here," she whispered. "Your presence silences its call, even for a moment." Ethan nodded. "Then stay with me," he whispered. The generator hummed to life, sending a shockwave of white light through the room. The shadows screamed and retreated into the cracks. But the veil didn't disappear. It condensed. Gathered. And shaped itself into a tall, monstrous figure in front of them. Lyra screamed, stepping behind Ethan. "It's coming in its true form," she whispered, voice trembling. Ethan stood firm, even as fear crept into his bones. "I'm not running," he said quietly, "you stay behind me." The veil's hollow eyes glowed as it pointed at Lyra. "She is mine," it growled. "Human, this is your last chance to leave." Ethan didn't move. Not even a step. His answer was simple. "I stay with her." The veil's towering shadow form stood before them, its shape twisting like smoke trapped inside a storm. Empty eyes glowed with cold hunger, staring at Lyra as if she were a piece of lost property. Ethan felt her grip tighten on his sleeve as she hid behind him, her glowing markings dimming in fear. The veil's voice echoed like cracking ice. "She belongs to the dark, step aside, human." Ethan lifted his chin. "Not happening," he said, keeping Lyra behind him. The veil reacted instantly, the shadows around it swirling in anger, tendrils shooting out like black spears. Ethan grabbed Lyra and pulled her to the ground as the shadow spears shattered against the metal floor, leaving deep scars. Lyra cried softly, "It gets stronger the closer we get to the power core." "That means we're close to beating it," Ethan said, though his own voice shook. Ethan scanned the room quickly, noticing several metal rods, wires, and a plasma coil hanging from the ceiling. His engineer mind immediately began connecting ideas. The veil wanted Lyra, but it feared her light. Imagine if her light could be amplified. Directed. Turned into a weapon. "Lyra," Ethan said, touching her cheek to steady her breathing, "your light hurts it." Lyra nodded weakly, but only when I am near someone I trust, she whispered, my light alone is too unstable. Ethan smiled faintly, then we'll use me to stabilize it. Lyra blinked in confusion, what do you mean? Ethan moved toward the hanging plasma coil, keeping his body between Lyra and the veil. We tie your light into this coil, he explained, if it charges enough, we blast the whole room with it. Lyra's eyes widened, but that much energy could harm you, she whispered, it might even kill you. Ethan gave a small shrug, better me than you. Lyra grabbed his wrist, her voice breaking, don't say that, she pleaded, don't sacrifice yourself for me. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, Lyra. I'm not losing you to a shadow. The veil screeched, its form shaking violently. Human, your mind is weak, your hope is useless, give her to us. Lyra flinched at the sound, but Ethan stepped forward, blocking the veil's view of her completely. You want her, he said, you'll have to go through me first. The veil exploded with rage, sending a storm of shadow tendrils in every direction. Ethan pushed Lyra behind an energy barrier and leapt toward the coil, sparks flying everywhere. The shadows struck him, cold as death, whispering illusions in his ear. Earth burning. Lyra screaming. His own body falling into darkness. Ethan clenched his jaw, refusing to break. Not real, he whispered, none of it is real. Lyra pressed her glowing hands against the barrier, tears running down her face. Ethan, she cried, let me help you. He shouted back, charge your light, now. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing every breath, her markings glowing brighter and brighter. The room glowed like moonlight beneath an ocean, and the shadows twisted in pain. Ethan reached the coil, grabbing a handful of sparking wires. He connected them to his wrist pad and shouted, Lyra, give me your hand. She ran to him, shaking, and placed her hand on his chest, right over his heartbeat. Her light poured into him like warm fire, strengthening his resolve. The veil roared. Stop her, she was ours. Ethan wrapped his arm around Lyra, holding her steady. Don't listen, he whispered, you're stronger than it. Lyra's eyes glowed white as her light surged, flowing through Ethan into the coil. The room trembled, metal groaning as the air filled with bright energy. The shadows screamed, pulling back violently, the veil's form shrinking under the growing brightness. But the veil fought back, forming a massive arm of darkness that slammed into them. Lyra cried out, falling to her knees, the light flickering dangerously. Ethan wrapped his arms around her tightly, shielding her with his own body. Lyra, look at me, he whispered softly, I'm here. Her breathing steadied, her light growing again, stronger this time, more focused. The veil's final roar echoed through the chamber as the coil overloaded, releasing a massive burst of pure white light. The explosion was blinding. The entire station shook. The shadows shrieked and dissolved into dust. When the light faded, Ethan lay on the floor, coughing, his body shaking from the energy blast. Lyra crawled to him, her hands glowing weakly as she cupped his face. You stayed, she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks, even when it tried to break you. Ethan smiled faintly, I told you. I'm not leaving. But before they could stand, the metal floor beneath them cracked, and a deeper darkness seeped out, thicker and heavier than before. Lyra's eyes widened in terror. No, she whispered, that wasn't the true veil, that was only its shell. The real one was waking now. Right beneath their feet. And it was far angrier than before. The metal floor beneath Ethan and Lyra cracked open like a wounded beast. A heavy pulse of cold air rushed upward, carrying the scent of old darkness. The faint remaining lights flickered as if terrified, then dimmed until only Lyra's glowing markings lit the room. Ethan helped Lyra stand, but she stared down into the widening crack with pure horror. Her voice was barely a whisper. The real veil is waking. From the depths, something massive moved, a shape too large, too ancient, too wrong to belong in the world of light. The shadows pulled together at the center of the room, swirling violently as the creature's true form rose. No longer a thin figure. No longer a simple shadow. But a towering mass of darkness with countless eyes glowing like dying stars. Lyra stumbled back until she hit Ethan's chest. It was trapped under us, she whispered. The shell was only a distraction, this is its true heart. Ethan's pulse hammered inside him, but he placed his hands on her shoulders, grounding her. Lyra, we're ending this tonight. The Veil's true voice shook the entire station, deeper than thunder, colder than void. Little light, you ran from us once. You will not run again. Lyra gripped Ethan's shirt, tears trembling in her eyes. I can't fight this alone, she whispered. You're not alone, Ethan said, lifting her chin so she met his gaze. You have me. Her markings brightened slightly at his words, but the Veil unleashed a shockwave of darkness that threw them across the room. Ethan crashed into a broken panel, pain shooting across his ribs. Lyra collapsed beside him, gasping for breath. The Veil rose higher, filling half the chamber now. Human, she will burn out if she fights me. Give her to the dark and you may leave. Ethan wiped blood from his lip. Not happening, he whispered, pushing himself up. The Veil's many eyes narrowed. You will die for a creature not of your kind. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra even though his whole body shook. She asked me to stay, he said softly, so I stay. Lyra stared at him, her lips trembling, her voice small but full of emotion. Ethan, why do you do this? He touched her cheek gently, because your light is worth fighting for. Her eyes widened, glowing brighter. But the Veil raised one massive arm of darkness, ready to crush them both. Ethan grabbed Lyra and pulled her close, bracing for impact, but at the last second Lyra unleashed a blast of biolight, creating a protective shield. The shadow blow crashed against it, shattering the air but not breaking through. Lyra groaned, her knees shaking. I can't hold this forever. You don't have to, Ethan said, turning toward the only device in the room still sparking, the damaged light core amplifier. We finish what we started. Lyra followed his gaze and her breath caught. That much energy could destroy us both, she said, if I pour my full light into it. I will burn away. Ethan shook his head, gripping her hands. Not if we fuse our energy. Lyra blinked, confused. Fuse, how? Ethan pulled her close, placing her trembling hand over his heart again. You said your light grows stronger when I'm with you, he whispered, then use me as your anchor. For a moment, Lyra only looked at him. Then something inside her shifted. Her fear mixed with hope. Her despair mixed with courage. She whispered softly, I trust you. The Veil roared, shaking the entire station. No, she belongs to the dark, not to you. Ethan didn't look away from Lyra. Ready? Lyra nodded, wiping her tears with shaking fingers. They ran together toward the light core, the Veil trying desperately to stop them. Darkness shot out in all directions, tendrils slicing through metal, crushing walls, screaming like wounded shadows. One tendril grabbed Ethan's ankle and yanked him into the air. Lyra screamed his name, her glow exploding like a star. She struck the tendril with pure light, burning it away until it released him. Ethan landed hard, but Lyra was already beside him, helping him up. Stay with me, she whispered, panic and fear in her voice. I'm not going anywhere, he replied. They reached the core, glowing like a fractured crystal, still crackling from earlier. Ethan positioned Lyra's hands on the central conduit and placed his hands over hers. Focus on me, he whispered, not the darkness. Lyra closed her eyes, tears falling as she whispered, please stay. I'm here, he answered, I'm right here. Their lights fused, Lyra's silver glow mixing with Ethan's warmth. The machine reacted instantly, the crystal turning white-hot. The entire room shook as a beam of pure energy began forming around them. The Veil screeched. No, you cannot, she is ours, she is ours. Lyra finally opened her eyes, no longer silver, but glowing white. Blinding. Beautiful. Fearless. No, she whispered, her voice steady and strong, I choose my own path. The light exploded outward in a giant sphere. The shadows burned. The Veil screamed. The station shook like a dying star. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra, shielding her even though the light was hers, not his. The Veil's massive form cracked. split, and dissolved into dust. The darkness melted away like ice under the sun, leaving only silence and falling particles of shadow. When the light finally faded, Ethan collapsed, coughing. Lyra caught him, holding him tightly against her chest. Her voice trembled. "Ethan, you stayed, you really stayed." Ethan smiled weakly. "I promised, didn't I?" Lyra pressed her forehead to his, tears falling silently. "You saved me." "You saved yourself," Ethan whispered. "I just stood with you." The station lights flickered back on, for the first time bright and stable. The darkness was gone. Forever. Lyra helped Ethan to his feet, her hands never leaving him. "The night is over," she whispered, "because you didn't leave me alone." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "And I won't." Together they walked out of the ruined chamber, leaving behind the last breath of the veil. Stepping into a future where Lyra no longer feared the dark. Because she had found her light. And he had chosen to stand beside it.